They had tased me twice. A cop put a shotgun to my head and was gonna kill me.
All right, so you're physically running. Run into a sewer drain.
No, this is what happens. We rob a jewelry store. The jeweler gets out of the zip ties. We go on a high-speed chase with the jeweler. We wreck the car. I get out and run. I end up running behind this building, and they had a pond behind the building. It was covered in leaves. I didn't even know it was a pond. I go to fall into the pond, get out. I run up this hill, and there's a bunch of trucks, but I see a bunch of people. So I run back down. I go and crawl into a sewer drain, but I can hear the helicopters, and then I hear the dog. And I hear a lady say, I'm gonna let this dog in wherever you are. So I come out. When I come out, cops hit me from the back. They tased me twice. Cop pulls out a shotgun, puts it to my head. I was supposed to die right there. Cop had a gun in my head and was about to shoot me. But the grace of God, God pulled me out of that.
Let me just say, first off, anybody watching, listen. I was like, I'm gonna drop like 20 pounds for my first podcast. It didn't happen. So, but guess what? It doesn't matter. You gotta start where you are with what you have. You just gotta go with it. It's never gonna be perfect. It's never gonna be a perfect situation. But I'm here with my brother. I love you, man.
I love you too, brother.
This is my childhood best friend.
Yeah, definitely.
So it's like, my first interview, first podcast gonna be with you.
Amen.
I know we talked a couple months ago, and for those people who don't know, my friend Vinny, we grew up together. The way I describe you in like a quick way is, one of the best athletes in the area. Growing up, D1 athlete, D1 scholarships, like always was a great dude, good person. Next thing I know, did you hear about Vinny? I'm like, no, what happened? Oh, he got locked up, armed robbery. Or like, people sending me the clip.
Yeah.
I see you in the jewelry store.
Yeah.
Robbing the jewelry stores. Clearly it's you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You might not have been the smartest criminal. You know what I mean? You got the hat on, like, yeah, that's Vinny. I'm sure somebody from around the way was like, oh, yeah, I know who that is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so how long have you been out?
Going on, it's about to be 11 months. I'll be home a year next month.
Okay.
Yeah, so, about 11 months. I came home in May of last year, May 25th.
Okay.
May 28th. May 28th, 2025.
2025.
Yeah.
So I want to get to like the childhood growing up and work our way through your redemption story, which to me is amazing. Like, I'm like, there's a lot of things I feel like from your story I need to learn. But since you've only been out a year, like, what would you say? Let's describe that first day you got out. What was that like when you're like, oh wait, I'm actually free?
When you're incarcerated, now mind you, I did 13 years. So when you do time like that, and once I finally got sentenced and I realized that I was going to be doing that much time, you're planning for that day, your entire incarceration. Like, those thoughts go through your head every day. What am I going to do when my first day out? What am I going to do in the next couple months of my life? So to be honest with you, I was so prepared for it, and I think God was preparing my heart in the midst of my entire incarceration that everything wasn't really real clear, but he was preparing me day by day. So he wanted me more focused on change than actually what I was going to do when I got out. A lot of the thoughts about going home were my own, but I know there was a lot of work that needed to be done in my life in the midst of my incarceration. So I really wasn't locked in and focused on it. But that day, it was surreal because you've been locked up for my whole adult life from 28 to 42. So it was like, it was surreal, I was up the whole night before, and you just in prayer. I spent probably 5 or 6 hours just in prayer, just to prepare myself emotionally, because I didn't really want to break down, because I knew if I broke down, everyone that was there for me would have. So I was just locked in and focused, and then it hit me like, I'm on the streets, yo. Like, I'm home, you know what I'm saying? But it was an awesome experience. All glory be to God. I was just grateful, like overwhelmed with just gratitude, because I know I didn't deserve it. You understand what I'm saying? Like, when you know you don't deserve the things that God is doing in your life, there's a sense of gratitude and humility that hit me when I first walked out. Because I know there was guys that was living lives that I was living that are dead or got life in prison. You know what I'm saying? I had 3 jewelry store robberies. You know what I mean? And to only do 13 years is just God's grace and mercy in my life.
before you went in 2012,
Yeah.
you know, life is a certain way, the world is a certain way.
Without a question.
And you come out, what so far has been the most difficult, most challenging thing for you since you've been out?
Now, I will say there's different aspects of it as far as like dealing with people. People just aren't the same. Cell phones and social media has changed the way that we interact with each other. You know, when you're incarcerated, you don't have those things. So it's constant contact with people that you're actually living with. Then you have a cellie, or you may be in a single cell. So in prison, you're more personable with people because we're just talking to each other. You get on the phone, you talk to your people. When I came out, people don't talk to each other anymore. You know what I'm saying? People walk right past you. People don't really have a moral sense of consciousness anymore. Like, people don't hold doors. You know, there used to be a thing when you walked around certain black men, you acknowledged them like, oh, what's up? Or men, period. Oh, what's going on? There's none of that anymore. You know what I'm saying? And it's, and I say it's a shocker because you think that social media will bring us closer together, but it's actually done the opposite. But as far as my own personal life, it's dealing with my past. You know what I'm saying? When you live the life that I was living, there's consequences to it. You know, prison just wasn't a consequence. Dealing with my record, you understand what I'm saying? Getting employment. You know, for the first like 7-8 months, I really struggled. I would go to interviews, get the job, and then when they do background checks, my history would come up, and it would be like, you know, you have the credentials from school and work that you've done prior to your incarceration, but because of this robbery charge, you know, we can't do nothing for you. But I knew that God had something better for me. You know, I knew it was just something he was doing in me until I got where I needed to be. You know what I mean? So in the midst of it, just being thankful and grateful, you know what I mean? To be home, to be around my family, my children, just thankful. Just having a heart of gratitude in the midst of the trials and tribulations in life, man.
So how has it been trying to navigate social media?
I know absolutely nothing about when it comes so far as when it comes to like how to like edit stuff, this and that. Let me tell you a little story. When I first got home, my mom, like, you know, that's my number one fan. You know what I'm saying? Even in the midst of my incarceration, she was there for me. There wasn't a time where I called where she didn't answer that phone, but she was such in a rush for me to like understand technology. Like, I was embarrassed to use a phone. Like, I didn't want to use a phone the first couple of days because I knew I wouldn't really understand how it worked. So my daughters really were trying to show me stuff. And I'll be honest with you, I really like started to pick up things on my phone probably like 3-4 months ago to where I really understood how everything really worked. And I like to be on the forefront of technology. So it was real humbling. You know what I'm saying? And to see the leaps and bounds in technology has really blown me away. Because in prison, you just see commercials. You don't really get to really get your hands on that stuff. So, I mean, that was tough. Like, social media, I think, if used the right way, can be extremely beneficial. But I believe if it's used the wrong way, could be detrimental to a lot of people, can become addictive and really harm our youth. Yeah, so.
I think I'm gonna keep going this direction as far as where you are now. We'll circle back, but how has it been since you've been out, like just navigating friendships? I'm gonna be honest with you. There was a time in my incarceration where I was bitter. And it wasn't so much in my heart, I just didn't understand why. Because when I was coming up with a lot of y'all, a lot of our friends, I was willing to die for a lot of my friends, you know what I'm saying? Or get in trouble or do things that normal friend, because I looked at y'all as brothers. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? So for me to get incarcerated and to not hear from anybody that I was like grew up with, it hurt me in a sense, but I knew God was doing something in my own heart. And I know that I hurt people by the lifestyle that I was living. Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And the lifestyle I was living, some of y'all, because y'all was fathers, y'all was headed in a certain direction in your own life, couldn't partake in that type of life that I was living. And God humbled me in that area and softened my heart in that area. You know what I'm saying? And it made me like proud. I became proud of y'all that y'all never went down that path. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's easy to. And I started to celebrate y'all Like dudes I grew up with as fathers, graduate college, you know what I'm saying? And I broke down one night in my cell and really repented from them feelings that I had towards people. You know what I mean? And I was just thankful and grateful that y'all never went down the path that I went.
Yeah. But I think there's something there because when you said that, I think you said that when I saw you a couple months ago.
Yeah.
That I was like, man, there's an aspect of that where I think you were right. Yeah. Where it's like, I know I didn't really reach out.
Yeah.
I think we may have communicated 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
My last experience with you before you went in, I don't even know if you remember, I was outside I forget, you had called me something.
Yeah.
And then we had talked out in front of my grandma's house, and you were asking me about a situation that happened. I was like, yo, I don't know.
Yeah.
And you was like, I forget, you kind of like got aggressive, and I was like, yo, what's up with him?
Yeah.
I was like, yo, I'm good, man. I don't even know this dude that much anymore.
Yeah.
But at the same time, looking throughout those years, like for me not to think like, oh, wait, that was just a moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That was just a moment of who he was. So yeah, man, I apologize, man. I think there was
no apology.
Yeah, not in the sense of like, even though I know it's way over, but needing as friends to think about, oh wait, when people are down, that's just a moment.
Yeah.
Like that's not entirely who they are. So I was wondering, like, what's it like? You going back to your hometown and people seeing you a certain way in that hometown, in that area is like, oh, wait, that's Vinny. You'll always be popular. You'll always be seen as that dude in a way.
Yeah.
So how do you, like, just navigate, like, going back? Do you feel embarrassed?
No.
Do you feel like, how does it make you feel, you being around some of the same people that you grew up with?
I mean, people are always going to have their judgment, and people are always going to feel a certain type of way. But I just take it back to my faith, and I just look at Jesus, man. Like I can't look any place other than Him. You know what I'm saying? And even when you change your life, people are still going to be stuck on who you were, and that's fine. You know what I mean? And I don't, when I hear people say certain things, it doesn't really bother me. It's just, it's a humbling experience, but at the end of the day, I don't hold anything against anybody. People can feel the way they do. I walk in love with everybody. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just grateful and thankful. You know what I'm saying? So, I want my story to be a story of the redeeming power of God. You know what I'm saying? Because I've really done nothing. You know what I'm saying? And my best thinking got me 13 years in prison. You know what I'm saying? So I just think of what God has done in my life and try to fulfill what I think He's calling me to do. Mm-hmm. And, it's going to be a tough road. It's not going to be easy. In fact, it's been tough being home, dealing with certain things.
How's it like getting a job? Like what? Like
I'll tell you this. I think it's different for everybody coming home from prison. So some dudes, it's not bad based on your record. You know what I'm saying? There's number of opportunities. It's just about, some businesses just don't deal with certain violent crimes. You understand what I'm saying? And just because we live in a society, and it's shocking because we live in a society where most people have family members that go to prison. We they call the United States and other countries incarceration nation. You know what I'm saying? Pennsylvania has more jails than any other state, more county, and more federal jails than any other state. So you would think that this is knowing that there's opportunities, and there are, but I'm educated. And
that's what I want to get to. Like you're not dumb. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, oh, this dude didn't have, and this is what I want to get to. It's not like you didn't have parents.
Yeah.
You didn't grow up extreme poverty. You know what I mean? So you're coming out not an idiot, like you're smart. You went to college. Yeah. So I'm wondering, is it just a wrestling match, no pun intended, since you a D1 wrestler, we're like, wait, I should be here.
Yeah.
But like, oh man, I feel like I'm here. Or like maybe I'll get to a job or like, wait, I gotta work this job.
I'm gonna be honest with you. Wealth doesn't matter to me. You understand what I'm saying? So as long as I can support myself and support my family and do what I believe God is calling me to do financially for his kingdom, then none of that stuff matters. And believe it or not, that's one of the things that I think God's dealt with me the most when I was in prison. Because all my life I struggled with identity and of who I thought I had to be and not who I believe God was calling me to be. So, when you're trying to, when you're searching for identity, especially as a young black man in America, searching for identity, a lot of the people that we want to be or things we want to do are tied to wealth. And really, God showed me that those things really mean nothing, especially if you're not storing up treasure in heaven. You understand what I'm saying? What's the point of having all this on earth? And you're going to be somewhere for eternity. So I've really as long as I can take care of myself, my family, then and do what I believe God's calling me to do for his kingdom, money really doesn't have an issue to me. So as long as I can, support myself, I'm fine. You know what I'm saying? And I don't mind doing hard work. So, right. A lot of the education that I had means nothing to what I'm doing now. You understand? I believe that the Spirit of God uses those things, but, everything in my past is in the past. I press forward, you know what I'm saying? And just thankful for the opportunities I do get. You know what I mean?
Let's talk back about that identity issue. Because I wonder, when I look at, you sent me times when you were getting in trouble. So
2007,
2009, 2005, you trespassing. 2007, you had a drug case. Yeah. 2009, you had a little issue in a little burglary issue. Or trespassing issue, and then 2012 is when the jewelry store robberies happened. Yeah. So, and that's a wide gap, 2005 to 2012.
Yeah.
So during that time, what was it about your wrestling match with identity that got you going down that path? Who were you trying to be? Who do you think you were trying to be?
I would say identity was an issue, but I would say it was more so being lost. You understand what I'm saying? And when you're lost, you'll entertain anything. You understand what I'm saying? When you're lost in life, you're just looking for a place to go and a place to be accepted. You know what I mean? So when you're lost and you don't know who you are, your identity, then anything is possible. And then when you're entertaining the wrong things, my life was consumed with our culture. You know what I mean? Whether it was the music or the lifestyle. So when you're lost, you don't know who you are, and you're entertaining the wrong things, anything is possible, right? And the word of God says that the heart of man is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. You understand what I'm saying? So the things that I were entertaining, they weren't based in moral soundness. You know what I mean? They're based in wickedness. So when you have a heart that's lost, you don't know what direction you're going, you don't know who you are, you're entertaining these things, anything is possible. Because once that seed of evil gets planted in your heart, the things that I'm taking in now are pouring onto that seed. So now it's just a matter of time before it all comes to fruition.
Let me ask you, so it culminated with jewelry store robberies. Well, where do you think it started at? I remember as kids, we would get in trouble, go to the store, steal, just doing stupid stuff, right? But
where do I think it went over the edge?
Yeah, no, or how did that start for you? Do you feel like it became an addiction, in the sense of
greed?
You got greedy.
Greed and laziness. You understand what I'm saying? I don't know how I could specifically define those things, but I would just say and I want to go back to being lost. You understand what I'm saying? When you don't know who you are and what you're called to be, that's a dangerous thing for men. That's dangerous because anything is possible. You understand what I'm saying? And I just think it happened probably, as I look back at my life as a whole and the Spirit of God, once I surrendered my life to God, went back and showed me moments where God was drawing me. Right. And I think for any man to move forward, there has to be a real honesty of who you are and who you were. And a lot of men don't want to be honest with themselves. So, I had to acknowledge that there was things that happened in my life as a child that caused some things in my adolescence. So my mom, like I said, is my number one fan, but my mom wasn't really overly loving, if I could say that in a way. And I lived in a house where love was shown, but it wasn't really expressed in a way of, I love you, I love you. And we weren't really a hugging family, but my parents were super supportive in everything I've done. Great parents. They've been married 43, 44 years. But growing up, my mom was hard. You know what I'm saying? She's the oldest of 24 kids. And she raised 10 of them by herself.
Time out. 24?
Yeah, she's the oldest of 24 kids. So my mom was a harder Black woman, but extremely loving. And I noticed when I look back that I was always looking for acceptance from women. And it even plagued me in my 20s to where I was always trying to impress women or just be accepted by women in my life. And I know that it was maybe not the thing that pushed me over the edge, but it was one of them. You know what I'm saying? Because you think in our culture, in our society, to impress women, you have to be wealthy, you have to look a certain way. You understand what I'm saying? And I know it was a thing that plagued me in my 20s because I was wanted to be so accepted by women and wanted by women that instead of being just a child of God and wanted and knowing my identity, knowing who I was, and it sent me down a terrible path, man.
Yeah. I feel like you already were accepted by women.
But not the acceptance that, and that's the thing, when someone looking from the outside would think that, you understand what I'm saying? But, inner turmoil can't be seen by the eye. You know what I'm saying? It was a life of turmoil. You know what I'm saying? There was a lot of ups and downs. And, I say that when I went over the edge was probably 08, 09. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing about, I can't take this apart from our spirituality because that's what sin is. Sin has a snowball effect. You understand what I'm saying? And when sin isn't checked, I'm telling you, anything is possible. There's a lot of things that I didn't do just because of the grace and mercy of God on my life. You understand what I'm saying? If it wasn't for God, I'd be doing life in prison because that's what happens. Sin just gets worse and worse and worse as it's unchecked. Mm-hmm. And then you look back and you're entertaining things that you thought you would never entertain. Nobody could ever told me I'd be doing 13 years in the penitentiary. You couldn't have told me that. But once I got that sentence, I realized it was real. You understand? But I would never choose it for my life, but I would never change it.
Well, yeah. When did it become real?
It became real that I knew I was going to do some time. Now, I mean, that whole thing in when I finally got arrested, now mind you, I'm on a run. I'm on a run for 2 jewelry store robberies, me and my co-defendant. I was living in Las Vegas at the time. I fly back from Las Vegas to Maryland. I catch a jewelry store robbery in Maryland. They end up arresting me, right? The minute I got matter of fact, while they were arresting me and I was sitting in the back of the police car, I was supposed to die right there. Cop had a gun in my head and was about to shoot me, right? They had tased me twice. A cop put a shotgun to my head and was going to kill me. But the grace of God pulled me out of that.
So you were on the run physically. You're running.
No, I'm physically on the run from 2 cases. And then I'm physically get in the midst of a jewelry store robbery, wreck a car, and go on a run. And the cops actually catch me coming out of a sewer drain, right? It was just over. The weight of being on a run, everything going over, I was just done. And
wait, hold on. Let's pause for a moment. Describe it for me. Like, all right, so you're physically running. How you run into a sewer drain?
No, this is what happens. We rob a jewelry store. The jeweler gets out of the zip ties. We go on a high-speed chase with the jeweler. We wreck the car. I get out and run. My Cody runs one way, I run another way. When we run, I end up running behind this building, and they had a pond behind the building. It was covered in leaves. I didn't even know it was a pond. I go fall into the pond, get out, and run. I run up this hill, and there's a bunch of trucks, but I see a bunch of people. So I run back down. I go and crawl into a sewer drain, right? But I can hear the helicopters, and then I hear the dog. And I hear a lady say, I'm going to let this dog in wherever you are. So I come out. When I come out, cops hit me from the back. They tased me twice. Cop pulls out a shotgun, puts it to my head. And the one cop's like, he got a gun. I didn't have a gun at that time. And the lady was like, y'all on the radio. Be careful what y'all say. And the other cop pushes the gun away like, nah. And they handcuff me. They put me in the back of the car. And The moment I got in the back of the car, it was like a relief. Like I was happy it was over.
You got tased twice because, I mean, you a big dude.
No, I got tased twice because I was
you didn't go down? Or
I was down. I was laying on my stomach because they couldn't see if I had a gun or not. So they said tase it. They wanted to make sure. And when I got in the back of that cop car, it was like a weight was lifted off me. When I got into the prison, the first thing a person said to me was, "Are you Muslim or are you Christian?" And I said, just saying this because what we say, I'm a Christian. And he was like, "Listen, we got a Bible study and a prayer circle every day. If you want to come." And he bought a bag full of food and was like, God told me to get this to you. He was like, if you can pay it back. But if not, God bless you. And my life was never the same. You know what I mean? So
all right, we're gonna get to the redemption part.
Yeah.
But so 3 jewelry store robberies.
3.
Like this isn't like this is a real crime where like people can get hurt.
Yeah.
Let me ask, so like what are you planning to do with the money or jewelry?
And that's the thing. To do with the money was to change my lifestyle, to change my life. You know what I'm saying? But as far as that's the whole thing. You're chasing a mirage. You're chasing something that's really not based in reality. You understand what I'm saying? And I had got away with 2 of them. And we had got away.
How much did y'all make when you got away?
I was in $100,000 range. You understand?
So you would rob a jewelry store, get all this jewelry.
Yeah, and
then you would
go to New York and take it to a fence in the Diamond District and get rid of it. And I had got away. But what happened is we had another dude that was doing something with us. Long story short, the cops had got on to us because, they're serious crimes. They're violent crimes. So they investigate them more than anything. You know what I'm saying? And what happened was the last one that we did in Pennsylvania, the video that you're talking about, I didn't rob that jewelry store. That was a jewelry store that I had looked at, that we were casing. And they used that video because anyone that we robbed, they never had video of because we took all the video. They used that video and put that up as a person of interest. And a lady from one of the jewelry store we robbed says, I think that's him, but I'm not 100% sure. And there was over like 300 people that called in and identified me. But no one could surely say that I was the one doing them. So they like raided my house. And once they raided my house, I was in New York actually getting rid of jewelry. And when they raided my house, I just went on a run. I never went back. Mm-hmm. I actually flew to Las Vegas and was living out there.
At any point in this story, are you on drugs, using drugs?
Smoking weed. But nothing. I never used anything hard, like nothing like that. And I went years without smoking weed. So at this time, in the midst of all this, I'm still fighting MMA in the midst of all this, prior to all this happening. So I really wasn't smoking weed at that time. The first time I smoked weed was September 19th, 2011. After my last fight, that's the first time I ever smoked weed from like 2008 to then. You know what I'm saying? So it was just a culmination of just foolishness and entertaining the wrong things, brother.
Tell me about your first jewelry store robbery. Like this is like, your brain has to think like, oh, wait, I'm about to rob a jewelry store. Like, you have to be prepared to do this. Like, it has to be planned out.
See, the thing.
Like, what? I mean, did you think for once, like, all right, what's the consequence if I rob this jewelry store?
I'm past that point.
Okay, so you don't even care.
I wouldn't say I didn't care because I had children and a family at that time, so I did care. But when you're living that lifestyle, getting caught isn't an option. You're not. If you think about getting caught enough, then you're not going to do it. Because you know that there's consequences. But the stuff that I was entertaining, I would watch like YouTube over and over again, jewelry store robberies being robbed. I would watch like Heat. What the heck is that other movie?
You was researching.
Like doing research, really, and then spend hours.
DIY in the jewelry store robbery.
Man, listen, putting time, man. But that just shows you how crazy you can actually be. You know what I'm saying? How going and lost a person can actually be.
Now you guys have guns in these jewelry store robberies.
Let me say this.
Okay,
we have guns. They're not real guns. Okay.
Because that was my question. Like, wait. All right, so if you're doing this, are you thinking like, yo, I'm willing to shoot someone?
And they were BB guns. Because but the thing about it is, in the state of Pennsylvania, if I rob you with a BB gun and you think it's a real gun, they'll charge you with a real gun. right? Plus, we have to remember our system is broken. Though I was doing what I was doing, once you commit crimes like that, cops can add whatever they want. You know what I'm saying? A person can say they seen you with a gun, you didn't really have one. They're going to charge you with a gun. It's like a ghost gun. We didn't find one when we arrested him, but if a person says he had one, then we're going to charge him with it. But you don't go into robbing jewelry stores, at least we didn't, with you think everything's going to go right. But in your mind, you know that when you're dealing with a human, anything is possible. You know what I'm saying? Like, anything can happen. You know what I mean? So, and anything did. There was never a time when I did that where something didn't go wrong, because that's just the nature of evil. You understand? In your mind, you think that everything's going to go right, but that's the trick of the enemy. He wants you to believe that you're going to rob this jewelry store and ride off into the sunset. But when you're living in unrighteousness, there is no riding off into the sunset. There's a penalty and judgment. You understand what I'm saying? And that's what happens, whether it happens immediately or it happens down the road. There will be judgment. And there's a penalty for sin in this life. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, and you know, it's like a gambler. Once you get, you're chasing this for so long, putting all this time and energy into it, and then when you finally get it, it never feels like what you thought it was. It became more stress, right? So when I seen the first $100,000, you know, when Biggie says more money, more problems, it was the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
Explain, like, what? So you got all this bread now.
Because
you think like, oh, I got all this bread, I'm good.
Yeah, because now you're behind your back, and you know, once you get money, you start to get yourself entangled in more stuff. So now I'm getting more entangled in drugs. You know what I'm saying? And I'm
selling drugs.
Yeah, I'm dealing with people that I would normally never deal with. You understand what I'm saying? And it's crazy because God had showed me in His Word that no matter how slick you think you are, there's people that's slicker, right? And when we look in the Word of God, when we look at Jacob's life, he spent his entire life being a trickster, doing all this crazy stuff, all this stuff he was doing. And he actually got into a situation where God allowed him to be around somebody that was trickier, slicker than he was. And I was getting around people that were just at a different level when it came to this type of lifestyle. You understand?
You got an example? What's an example where like, oh wait, this person's too slick, or like they outsmarted me, or
let me tell you this. In the midst of me being on a run, now mind you, I got probably $60,000, $70,000 on me in cash and jewelry. So I'm dealing with people. Now, when you're dealing with that in that diamond district, you're dealing with people that play at a completely different level. These are millionaires who deal with cartels, drug dealers all the time. So I don't really have a sense. And then I'm dealing with people, my co-defendant was from New York City. So he had a street savvy that I didn't have. Plus he's from there, so he knows a lot of things going on. So he was dealing with two dudes that was real bad snakes completely. You know what I mean? I'm not a good person at this time in my life. These dudes are on a whole nother level. And there's a lot of poverty. So you're around a dude that got $60,000, $70,000 in cash, and he's about to drop off another $100,000 in cash. And they were plotting to kill me. And it was only because of my co-defendant that they didn't rob me and kill me. You understand what I'm saying? And in the midst of us living up there in New York on the run first, my co-defendant got robbed. There was just a lot of stuff going on, bro. And that just shows you what evil does. The enemy will paint a picture like everything's going to be okay, but it was just more confusion and more chaos. You understand what I'm saying? That's why there's a peace with righteousness. There's a peace with doing the right thing in your life. You know what I'm saying? I may not have all the money, but a peace that I can't even explain. And the Word of God said that it far surpasses our way of thinking. You understand the peace that I have now in Christ? I would never go back. I would never break law again. You understand? So, you know, it was just crazy. If I brought my paperwork here and let you read my discoveries, you would think it wasn't real, but it's 100% real. That's the life that I was living. You know what I'm saying? And it's crazy when I talk to people, because I was so good at hiding that life that people say, man, when I seen that, I thought it was wrong. I didn't think it was you. I thought it was somebody else, because I was so good at living that lie. Mm-hmm. I was so good at living that lie to when they finally caught me, my significant other didn't even know what to tell them. She didn't even know what to tell them. You understand? Because I live by the motto, people can't tell what they don't know. And I would never want to involve her anyway.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So, I mean, going back just a little bit. So you get a scholarship for college.
Yep, to wrestle.
Edinburgh
University.
You always been a beast.
Yeah.
You go to college, like what happens? Like between college and starting to get in trouble? Or were you thinking like, yo, I want to finish school, I want to go to the Olympics as a wrestler?
I don't think that school was ever the option for me. You understand what I'm saying? I was an athlete, then a student instead of a student athlete. And, you know, you have to be, my mom always says, and I'll agree with her now, that I went to college too early. I should have took a year off and really matured, because I don't think I was mature enough for that type of responsibility in my life. You know what I mean? To be a student and to be an athlete. You know what I mean? I didn't have the foundation to do those things at that time in my life, and the demand that Division I wrestling actually puts on you. And that school, Edinburgh was a top 10 school in the country at that time in Division I wrestling. And there was a lot of other things, competing things that, you know, that's just like college football is a meat market, so is college wrestling. Coaches aren't going to coddle you like they do in high school. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, the same thing, like that was like the beginning of me losing my identity. Because now you're around a bunch of different people from a bunch of different places, and, you know, you're trying to figure it out yourself and stake your own claim at who you are. And I just started to entertain a lot of the wrong things and didn't have the my mom and dad around me. And, you know, that's probably when the path I started to entertain some crazy things, whether it was drugs as far as weed or what I was listening to, you know what I'm saying, or what I was hearing or allowing to be spoken into my heart and my life at that time.
Let me read something you wrote. I was asking you about describe like growing up.
Yeah.
He was like, I wasn't raised in chaos. I was raised in a home with both my parents, a solid foundation, structure, and love. Growing up, I was known as an athlete, a standout in high school, chasing dreams and making a name for myself. That path took me to the next level, Division I college wrestling, where my future was all set. But somehow along the way, I made choices that changed everything. Were there things, because when I see you, at first I'm like, wow, he was probably one of the only ones in our neighborhood who had both parents. And I know you had talked on like maybe a lack of physical intimacy with your mom. But I always wonder, I'm like, was there something else like that happening in childhood that kind of started it that he never said, that you would be willing to say? Or like, when you look back in such a big issue with identity, like, what are some other things that may have been happening in childhood that no one else ever saw?
I really couldn't. I mean, let me tell you this, man. I had such good parents that I think that my parents may have been too good to me. You know what I'm saying? To where there was things that should have been instilled that just weren't, because I was such a good athlete. And my parents put so much time and energy into that the foundational things that I needed as a teenager, I never really had. You understand what I'm saying? I didn't have, now when we look at, if we took at your life, because you didn't have your parents in your life, you matured so much faster because there was a lot of stuff you had to do yourself and learn on your own. I didn't have those things, you understand, because I had a mother and father to do them for me. So when I did get out on my own, that foundation I just didn't have. You understand what I'm saying? But, you know my dad. He is like the dad of dads, the father of fathers. You know, there's nothing, great dude. There's nothing my dad won't do for any of his children, grandchildren, and friends and family. So my parents can't be the excuse, because I didn't really start getting in trouble until I was an adult. My upbringing was perfect. Like, my mom and dad were great as far as when it came to being parents. You know what I mean? But mine was just on my own, bro. Like, I can't look back at my childhood and say that there was any event or anything that happened, because I'm a transparent person. So there's a lot of stuff that I talk about that may be too much for people to really take in. And I never had any experience to where I say like that I could put my finger on and say that's why.
Well, so what's it like as far as the conversations been with your parents over the years? Because I'm sure my guess is they're probably looking at it like, wait, what did we do wrong? We did everything right.
And that happened to my mom for a while. For a while during my incarceration, she blamed herself. And I think she came to terms when I told her, I think it was around 14 or 15, 2014 or 15. And I told her, I said, every decision that I've made has led me to prison. Every decision that y'all made in my life was to take me to another level in my life for good. Every decision I made brought me to the penitentiary and put me in the situation that I'm in today. You know what I mean? I don't want y'all to hold anything in y'all's heart because I made these decisions as an adult, you know? And I think she finally came to terms with, okay, you know, we did everything that we could. You know, my dad was already there. Like, I've done everything a father could for my son, you know what I mean? And went above and beyond. Even so to where my dad actually raised my daughters when I was incarcerated. My mom and dad helped raise my children, you know what I'm saying? So I could never say that my family or my parents had anything to do with that. They just, you know, they were hurt. Their youngest child who was promising future in sports and wrestling, you know, is doing a lot of time in prison. You know what I'm saying? But to be honest with you, I think it was good for them and me. You understand what I'm saying?
And looking back, you can now see.
Without a question. When I look back, it was the best thing that ever happened to me going to prison for all that time. And I think it strengthened my family. You understand what I'm saying? And it brought out a level of love and care and that my family needed. We needed each other, and that they needed each other, and that me not being there. Mm-hmm.
It's only worth it looking back now because you've become,
without a question,
something amazing, right?
Yeah.
But tell me what happened in prison, like that transpired, where it was like your life started to get changed, and now you're confronting you. You know, was it one event? You know, was it some people in there who started talking to you? Talk about that process of now you're confronting you, and now in that process, God is coming in. Mm-hmm. What was that like for you?
Oh man, I'll say this, man. Like, and just take heed. I miss aspects of prison every day, like the camaraderie between men. And I ran into some of the most brilliant men. Some of the most brilliant men in the world are in prison and never coming out of there. And men that are just so humble and so grateful and thankful to be doing life in prison. You know what I'm saying? You're around men that are never coming home, that just have an attitude of gratitude to God. And God surrounded me with some men that, you know, that helped me become the man I am today. And it was just day by day, God was giving me more and more. And I was becoming secure in who I believe he was calling me to be. And it was dudes and this is the thing about life as a man that God had showed me. In every season of our lives, God is placing people around us to help us grow and to get to where he's calling us to be, and for us to do the same for others, right? But we be so self-consumed, and that's the thing with this society. Everybody's self-consumed that we forget that God has a plan and we have a purpose in life. So every season of my life, in the midst of my incarceration, God was putting people around me, putting men around me to help me become who he was calling me to be. Is this
like Bible studies? Is this
just without a question in the church, but just men in general? There was a dude who's a Muslim who poured a lot into my life about just being a man. You know what I'm saying? He was extremely militant, but he poured so much. He was doing life. He just poured so much into my life about just being a man and doing the things that men do, being honest, being truthful, being a leader. He was a Muslim. And then there was another brother who I sat under as an assistant pastor, who was doing a lot of time, who showed me the gentleness, the love, and the kindness of God. You know what I mean? How he chooses to deal with me. You know what I'm saying? And it was just so many people in prison, so many brilliant men, so many men that God really has his hand on that, helped me become who I am today. Chaplains that have blessed me. You know, God gave me favor in prison, man, that you don't see most people get. And, you know, I would never choose prison for my life, but bro, I would never change it. It's one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me. That 13 years of my life, I grew leaps and bounds, man. Like, I just surrendered to God. And
let's talk about, so that's a word that comes up to me, is surrender. When do you felt like a surrender? Or like, was it a moment?
It was a moment. When I came into that Baltimore County jail, mind you, I came in a white zip-up suit with no shoes and socks on. And it was the most humbling moment in my entire life. And I believe that, and I know from what the Holy Spirit has revealed to me now, that God wanted it that way. That I had to be broken down, the pride had to be stripped, and I had to be humbled at that moment. You understand what I'm saying?
And that's that being broken down.
Yeah.
It's painful.
Yeah. And it's good.
Walk me through that pain. Like, what's going through your head? Like, you being stripped of.
So I knew that, I told you, as soon as I got in the cop car, it was like a relief. And I knew as soon as I got into that prison and I was like that, there was a sense that I was going to be there for a while. You know what I'm saying? And though I didn't really know who God was at that time, I knew that God had his hand on me because I know I was supposed to die that day. And being broken is where, and hear me when I say this, is where I like to be. I like to be in a state of humility and brokenness because I know that's when God works the best in my life. So when I'm broken and I'm humble, I know that his power is what's going forth, right? Because he exalts the humble. He resists the proud. And God will strengthen a broken and contrite heart, right? So I know that that's where I need to be who God's calling me to be. So I always go back to that brokenness when I was in prison because it's constant. Because you're dealing with issues with not dealing with your kids, not dealing with my significant other. My mom and dad are going through this. So I like that keeps me humble. You know what I'm saying? Because as men, we can really think we're doing something and really get prideful and think that we deserve this and we are in control of this. And that's where I don't want to be. You know, I want to be in a place to where I'm surrendered to his will and to his word and his authority in my life. So I like that brokenness and just being humble, man.
Were there moments where you were just emotional, crying all when you were surrendering?
Yeah, there's moments where your humanism comes through and I'm like, man, I might be in for 20 years, you know what I'm saying? And it all hits in. And then you're dealing with, I was in a lot of fights. I was stabbed, did a lot of things that I shouldn't have did in the midst of me being incarcerated to survive. In the midst of being in prison, you still have to survive. And I know God kept me because there was times that people wanted to take my life.
What's that? So what's the beef in prison? Like, why are you getting in fights? Like,
because in Maryland's a gang system. Maryland is ran, that penitentiary system in Maryland is ran by gangs. There's a lot of gangs in Maryland. So when you're dealing with a gang culture in prison, they run the phones, right? They run a lot of the stuff going on.
So they want you to, hey, if you want to use this phone, you got to do.
You might have a blood phone, a Crip phone, a Muslim phone, and there might be 6 phones on a block.
No Christian phone?
There's going to be one, so we going to get on the phone. So there's 90 dudes on a tier and 6 phones, right? So you can just imagine what goes on. And then I was on a tier where there was 120 dudes and 4 phones. So you could just imagine, we want to talk to our people too. And when I first got in prison, and this is when I'm going through just like it's setting in that I'm here. Like my first week, I go to get on the phone and a dude, I didn't know he was BGF at the time, part of the Black Gorilla family. And he was like, yo, that's my phone. And I get on it at this time, such and such. And at this time, I'm just getting locked up. My mind is going crazy. I'm trying to get everything together. And I'm trying to set it in that I'm going to be here for a while. And I'm like, bro, I'm getting on that phone. Ain't nobody going to stop me from getting on that phone. And a brother comes up to me. He like, listen, bro, I don't know where you from, but down here, we play with knives. But I'm so going at this moment in my life. And I'm like, good, that's good. Then we both on the same page. So he like, well, we going to come in the cell. So I go in there. Now, mind you, I'm already going at this point in my mind, but I know that God's doing something. So I go in the cell, take my shirt off. Bull never comes in the cell. Like 2-3 days later go by, Bull start talking to me about becoming a gang member. And I'm like, listen, bro, I serve God and I'm about to do a bunch of time. That's the last thing on my mind. So, when you're in prison, those things just happen.
What's that mean? You go in a cell where like y'all would go to fight?
Yeah, we was gonna go in the cell and handle that. You know, because I'm not gonna be in.
Wait, where are the guards at this?
They're
thing?
up in a bubble. They're not.
Wait, so you guys are all down in like
we
a
all
common area,
and this is before I went upstate. This was in like a common area, and the crazy thing is that, you know, I ended up becoming good friends with the dude who did that. He ended up getting killed too. He ended up going home and getting killed, but we ended up having a good relationship, and I was able to minister into his life. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, prison's a rough place, bro. And you got to stand on your feet. If you don't, you'll get walked over. And there was no way I was going to let people just walk over me in prison. Now, I was humble in a lot of situations where I could have got violent, but I knew that there was young brothers that were following me. So for me to get violent, it had to be extreme. Now, I'm not going to let nobody put their hands on me or any of my Christian brothers, but there was times where I knew that humility was the answer here. And one thing about being a Christian in prison, everyone's watching.
How were people like? So you're getting into fights, or that's always possible. Like,
I was.
How were you surviving? Or like, how are you when you say be humble in certain areas? Is it like, yo, people coming up testing you, and you got to take a more humble role? But how do you also walk that line? Like, yo, I don't want no one to think I'm a punk, but also like, yo, you're not going.
See, what one thing about prison is, and this is a thing that I don't like about men in society today is in prison, your manhood's always tested, right? Men are going to hold you accountable in prison. That's what a lot of men are lacking in society. You can't tell a man anything now about his life because he thinks you're either judging him or you think you're better than him. One thing about prison, you can't fake in there, especially in Maryland system. You can't fake. If you tough, there's dudes that's going to find out how tough you really are. You understand what I'm saying? So that's why humility is so important when you're around just men. Because you got to be mindful. You're around killers. You're around robbers. You're around dudes that's never going home, who are dealing with things on the streets that you just couldn't imagine. You know what I'm saying? So when you're in them type of environments, you got to be a man all the time, right? So if it's your turn to get on the phone and someone telling you you can't get on the phone, you can humble yourself and be like, you know what, you got it. But if you do that in the wrong time to the wrong person, they're going to take advantage of that. So sometimes you just got to stand on your own too. Like, I'm getting on that phone no matter what, or we going over. You know what I'm saying? And most of the time, dudes don't really want to go through all that. So they'll be like, all right, once you do see you stand up one time, most of the time, they're going to be like, don't leave, bro, alone. But my lifestyle, how I was living in the prison, a lot of young dudes was like, okay, dude in the church, dude is who he says he is. He mind his own business. He really don't get into nothing. It was a lot of dudes who didn't like me that would do little stuff here and there. But there was only a couple occasions where I really had to really get physical or get violent. And that's when people either came in my cell or was trying to take something from me. You know what I mean? But other than that, I've really never gotten into no serious altercation to where it was continuous, like me and dudes is going through it. You know
what was the scariest moment?
You know, my ministry in prison was about helping dudes get out of gangs. And there was this one white dude, he was a dog. I forget what the name of the gang is, but he was a dog. And he wanted to get out the gang. He was coming to all the stuff we had. We had created a program called Young Godly Men. And the whole focus of the ministry is getting dudes out of gangs. And he was coming to the Bible studies. He was showing up. And he told me, like, man, I really want to drop my flag. But to drop your flag in this gang, you're going to get stabbed. Or they're going to try to kill you. And at this time in the jail, I got a lot of favor. Everybody knows me from working out, from being a pastor in the church, at the jail. So I had some favor, but that favor also comes with a threat. You know what I'm saying? And I told him, I'm like, bro, if you really want to drop your flag, I'm going to rock with you. I'm going to rock with you the whole way, you know. And you know, word came down that, yo, when he goes to chow, they going to stab him. So he wasn't going to eat. You know what I'm saying? Because he didn't want to get stabbed. And I said, yo, you know what? It was breakfast time. Then it was nighttime. And I said, bro, we going to breakfast. I said, bro, we not going to sit here like we afraid of anybody. Like, we got God with us, man. And we going to go to chow. So we get up early in the morning. Chow was at like 5. Get up. I'm ready to go to chow. I knock on his door. He like, man, I don't think I'm going. I said, bro, get your stuff on. We going to chow, bro. So we end up walking to chow. we end up walking to chow, and I'm prepared for everything. I had already packed my stuff in my cell. Like, I've surrendered my life to Christ. Like, I gotta be willing to walk this thing out, you know what I mean, with other believers. And we walk in the chow, and I see them, and there's a bunch of them. And it's only the grace and mercy of God that something didn't happen. And they look like they're surrounding us. And I see the one dude look over at me, and he go like this, and he just kept walking. They kept walking. We went to chow 8. So in my mind, I'm like, Dad, they're going to get us on the way back. Come back, they don't say nothing. And then the next day somebody comes gives me a note in the church and was like, man, that whole situation is done. So I knew it was going to happen. Now, mind you, I've been in fights where dudes, I've been stabbed in prison, stabbed dudes in prison, like in my cell, fighting dudes. But that was the scariest moment because I knew where they was willing to take it. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, prison is a rough place, man. But if you choose to surrender and you really choose rehabilitation, prison can be a great place to change your life, man. And it was for me.
There's so much about prison. I want to talk about. It's got a couple minutes, man. I know you said you had touched on throughout our talk about just society as a whole, but it sounds like what are some things you miss about prison that it sounds like you don't have or you're not seeing in society?
I would say camaraderie with men. Men have really isolated themselves with social media. Everyone has become so self-consumed. And when I was in prison, there was because we live together, we're together all the time, and men are all you have, is that building each other up, wanting to see the best in each other. I don't see that in society. It's usually men pulling each other down. You don't really see men lifting other men up, exalting other men higher than themselves. When I see men winning, I celebrate that. When I see men being great fathers, great businessmen, great husbands, and doing stuff in their community, I celebrate that. But when you out here, you just hear people, oh, he this, he that, instead of just celebrating men doing the right thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love seeing people win and people do good. And you just don't see that. And our society has become more world-centered instead of God-centered. And anytime you take God out of a community, chaos and confusion happens, man. And that's one thing I miss is just being around humble men who don't have to talk about what they have or who they were. They're just thankful and grateful, man. Everything's about wealth and accumulating a bunch of things out here instead of just knowing, because in prison, we pretty much all got the same thing. You know what I'm saying? Just men being humble and lifting each other up, man.
Mm-hmm. Biggest regret?
In life?
Mm-hmm. So far. Looking back, you're like, all right, man, if you could sum it all up, what would you say your biggest regret was?
Not coming to God sooner. And the Holy Spirit had showed me in the midst of my incarceration every time I was being drawn by the Spirit of God to individual events, people that he had placed in my life, going to your grandmom's church, just times that God showed me this was me, drawing you. And that's my biggest regret, that I didn't take advantage of the opportunities that God had given me. And even to the point where God showed me opportunities that would have changed the trajectory of my entire life. And it was a track coach named Chiz who came to me and asked me if I was a believer and if I wanted to. I was probably like 7 or 8. My sister was running track for him. He asked me if I was a believer and asked me if I wanted to run track. And God showed me that moment right there, that blessing, that opportunity would have changed the whole trajectory of my life.
All right, building your life now.
Yeah.
On a great path. Yeah. Like, what do you hope is still possible for you?
There's nothing that I don't hope is possible because it's all happening. I'm living a surrendered life to Christ. And I just know that the most important thing to me is just being the man that God has called me to be. There's nothing more important in my life than that, because everything falls into that. If I'm being who God calls me to be, I'm going to be a great husband. If I'm being who God calls me to be, I'm going to be a great father. I'm going to be a great friend, a great leader in my church, a great follower in my church. So everything is possible. It's not what I want to be. I'm doing it. I'm living it. You know what I'm saying? And just this opportunity in itself is God showing me everything that he showed me in prison. You know what I mean? Just being patient and being thankful and grateful. You know, my prayer life is based on gratitude and forgiveness.
Was it hard forgiving yourself?
I'll say this. There's areas that I still don't say that I don't forgive myself, but I leave areas open with that because it keeps me humble. It keeps me extremely humble when I approach people, when I deal with people, right? Because I know what my kid's mother went through, me not being there, right? And that keeps me humble when I approach her. It keeps me gentle and kind and thankful and grateful for what she did for our family and our children. And, you know, I forgive myself for the pain that I may have caused people. But what I did to my children for not being there, I like to keep that there because it keeps me humble. And it keeps me always coming back to God, being thankful and grateful that I am a father, that I have children that love me. That's one of the greatest gifts that God can give you, for someone to say you're a father. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I've forgiven myself for some of the pain that I've caused, but I like to keep my heart at a certain place to where I'm always humble, bro.
That's dope. So you're not letting the weight of the pain, the mistakes weigh you down, push you in that cycle of more pain.
Yeah.
You letting it, hey, I'm going to keep it in front of me. I'm going to confront it. I'm honest about it.
Yeah.
And it's going to draw me closer to my kids, closer to God.
Amen.
Like, that's dope. You learning, you know, you got saved.
Yeah.
You learning. What are your thoughts as far as like
Christendom as a whole?
Christendom as a whole, Jesus.
I just say that, you know, we live in a time now and this is for anybody that's listening to this or questioning giving their lives over to Christ. It was the best thing that's ever happened to me. You know, get around people that really know the word of God, that are really speaking the word of God of truth, and understand that Jesus loves you, that God loves you enough to give his only begotten son, would come to earth, die for our sins, and live a perfect life and an example for us. And, you know, I just think that the church as a whole needs to get back to surrender and obedience. Surrender and obedience. That should be the focus of all of our lives. Surrendering to the will of God and obeying the will of God, right? And there's a level of peace that'll come upon your life. Now, you may not have all the desires of your heart, but you'll be on a path of peace that you've never experienced before. And, you know, for all men, you know, I think our culture is in a place that it is because men don't want to be men. Men don't want to lead anymore. Men don't want to show love, gentleness, and kindness. Everybody wants to be rough and tough and this and that. And Jesus Christ was the toughest and strongest man in every room he went in, but he dealt with it with meekness, love, and kindness. And, you know, I just want men to get back to loving God, loving people, serving people, lifting each other up. That's what our society's missing. And as far as this whole what color was Jesus and what color was this and all that, that's just a distraction of the enemy. Right? Why does it matter what color he was? It's about what he's done. What he's done. You understand what I'm saying? I don't even allow myself to fall into them conversations because it's just a distraction of the enemy to keep us all fulfilling what we're called to do. And that's lead men to Christ. Right? I could care less about all that. If it's not about leading men to Christ, then it's all foolishness to me. Right? And building people up and wanting people to spend eternity with God. That's the most important thing in my life right now. Anything else to me is foolishness. If it's not about doing the right thing, helping people, growing, I don't want no parts of it. So, you know, that's just where I am. And hopefully, you know, somebody sees this and they decide to give their life to Christ. You know, I don't see this as a redemptive story because God redeems. God redeems man. You understand what I'm saying? And it's his power and it's his will and it's his goodness. I can't take credit for nothing, man. Mm-hmm. All I can say is that God helped me. You understand? I said God helped me and he did. So, you know, that's it. I'm just thankful and grateful, man. And that's where my heart is and that's where it'll always be. Just thankful for God, man.
Bro, this was high level for me.
All glory be to God.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for sharing. Man. Like, I wanted this to be my first one because I've been wanting to hear more of your story.
Yeah.
And you shared, man, you know, great communicator.
Yeah, I think you're going to reach.
I think you're going to reach a lot of people because it's so unique.
Yeah.
And you so honest about it, bro. Yeah.
All glory be to God, man. Hey, man, I love you, man. Hey, bro, you've always inspired me, man. And when I was in the midst of incarceration, there wasn't a day that I didn't think about you. But when I heard you was doing so good, man, I was just proud, just thankful and grateful, man, because I know how hard you work, bro. You know what I'm saying? How much you wanted it, man. I love you, man.
Yeah.
When I tell you I love you, man, like a brother, man, there ain't nothing I ain't willing to do for you, man. I'm so proud of you, bro.
Yo,
I love you, man. I love you, man.
Yeah,
I'm so proud of you, brother. I love you, man. I mean that,
dope,
bro.
Man.
I love you, man. I mean that, bro.
Yeah, that was. I love you, man. It's funny. I know this is not about me, but hearing so much of your story, different paths, but same surrender, honesty. That's why I wouldn't ever call it a gift to be in prison, but like having that time to confront and be honest, but you come out more free, because I know a lot of men, there are certain aspects you can't always share. Yeah. But to be like known and seen, and people, you could be like, yo, yeah, that is my mistake.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, there's so much freedom. There's so much freedom in that. And a lot of men are dealing with issues that they don't want to be honest with, and they've come into bondage to them. So there's a lot of men that are walking around with a certain level of bondage in their lives because they just don't want to be honest with themselves. Because deception is bad, but self-deception is the worst, because you'll deceive yourself and think you're living a life that you're not, all because you don't want to be honest with people and you're worried about judgment. You understand what I'm saying? Like I told a dude before, he was talking about me working out and looking good and all this stuff. I said, bro, only thing my looks ever got me was broke and a trip to the clinic, bro. You understand what I'm saying? It ain't never get me nothing good. You know what I mean? So it doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean? If you're not living right. You know what I mean? So I don't mind being honest, because I know honesty sets people free. Truth sets people free, bro. But, man, I'm just thankful for this opportunity, bro.